entire search by U.S. intelligence agencies to perfect mind control.
Once upon a time, or maybe twice, there was an unearthly paradise called Pepperland.
Warmer than the sun, cooler than the air.
As this 1952 CIA memo says, the aim is controlling an individual to the point where he will do our bidding against his will, and even against such fundamental laws of nature as self-preservation.
Beatle clue, you know.
Clues by the dozen are lurking.
There can be no doubt that by the application of these methods, a very large army of totally devoted people has been created. The conditioning has been driven in, so to say.
But it was a discovery here in Basel, Switzerland, at Sandoz Laboratories by Dr. Albert Hoffman, that led the intelligence agencies of America to believe that they had found the panacea. The discovery was lysergic acid diethylamide, LSD. The film that you see is considered by many experts to be the closest illustration of the effects of a hallucinogenic. Beatles into LSD?
I'm going to have to say I'm sure they were, but if you ask me to prove it, I've never seen any direct proof.
Now, yesterday and today, our theater's been jammed with newspapermen and hundreds of dogs from all over the nation, and these veterans agree with me that the city never has witnessed the excitement stirred by these youngsters from Liverpool who call themselves the Beatles. Now, tonight, you're going to twice be entertained by them. Right now, and again in the second half of our show. Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles!
Somewhere between albums and tours, there was a day when I had a dentist anyway, and this fellow was called John Riley. He'd been Patty's dentist, I think, and I had to get some dental work into this guy, and he became my dentist. Now, this fellow, for some reason or other, had obtained lysergic acid diethylamide 25, which at that time was it was not illegal.
And he just put it in our coffee or something, yeah.
We meant more to kids than Jesus did. I was just saying it as a fact.
Ringo came to Spain when John and I were down there. George, like you said, was doing the Indian stuff. What was Paul doing? That's what he was doing.
Paul and Mal left England in October 1966 and drove through Europe to Spain for a flight to Nairobi, Kenya. In Kenya, apparently the two traveled to the Kishi Highlands, perhaps to experience how the natives there live.
Having an art show in London at a gallery called Indica Gallery, and I heard this was going to be happening, so I went down the night before the opening. And the first thing that was in the gallery, as you went in, there was a white step ladder and a painting on the ceiling and a spyglass hanging down. I walked up this ladder and I picked up a spyglass, you balanced in there, and a teeny little writing, it just said yes.
And then she came up and said she didn't know who I was.
You didn't really know about it.
Yoga came around to my house.
She knew who the Beatles were because
she had met him.
She met you.
Yeah.
She knew of the Beatles. You didn't really know about it.
I don't know, you know.
But of course, I mean, if she knocked on your door, she knew you were a Beatle.
And then on November 19th, they returned to London.
Trying to integrate themselves with the commercial world, to become a part of it, but also do what they want to do. This is what a breakthrough is.
The
original premises of Indica Books and Gallery, which was started by Peter Asher, John Dunbar and myself back in 1965. And it had a lot of very close Beatles connections. Paul McCartney, for instance, helped put up the shelves and paint the walls and was very good at filling in holes in concrete.
So Miles anyway turned me on to a lot of that International Times, Evergreen, all those little things. Lots of very far out, and we used to do a lot of that. So way before John met Yoko and got avant-garde, I was like the avant-garde London bachelor with Miles, my pad in St. John's Wood. I was making like 8mm movies, showing them drums to me.
After the Beatles ended their 1966 world tour, they returned to London's Abbey Road studios to begin another recording session. But this time, things would be different.
Paul and Mal Evans come up with this idea of Sgt. Pepper.
I wrote Sgt. Pepper and fixing it home with Paul. It was at a point when he was living in his house in London. His housekeeper had left, and I lived with him for 4 months. And on top of the house, he had a small music room. And he used to sit on the piano, and that's when we wrote Sgt. Pepper.
The two people closest to the Beatles were their personal assistants, Neil Espinal and Mal Evans. Neil died in 2008 after 40 years as head of Apple. Maybe he never wrote a book, but if he had, Neil said it wouldn't be considered the holy grail of Beatles.
Fall of 1969, shortly after the release of Abbey Road, a rumor swept across the country concerning the death of Paul McCartney. The rumor received such widespread attention that stories appeared in Life magazine, Time magazine, and the New York Times, among many others.
This legend went that Paul had been killed in an automobile crash.
In October 1969, a disc jockey in Detroit received a call from a listener explaining that if some Beatles songs were listened to closely, clues would be heard.
The fact that there's something very strange about the Beatle Paul. The fact that the Beatle Paul may be dead.
McCartney was killed 3 years ago in an auto accident and a double put in his place.
There's two Pauls.
I don't know who started this. And I don't know if the Beatles were involved.
There are two Paul McCartney.
On the grave.
Yes, it is a grave. Why the preoccupation with death and exotic symbolisms of death?
Aware of any preoccupation with death or any symbolism? These are not things that we are aware of.
What about I Buried Paul? Is it there?
It sounds like it is to me, yes. It sounds like John is saying I buried Paul.
Did you hear it? I buried Paul.
Everyone's uptight about this. It's a negative trip, this is. It's a very bad trip for everyone. It's death, and it doesn't have any point. It doesn't have any purpose. It's a death trip, and it's no good, and it'll lead you into nothing.
I myself, of course, don't know the explanation for each of the very many minute clues that these people have concocted.
Because if you listen to the end of it, you've got a little backwards bit that we put in, which was actually a little phrase when you turn it round, and it was like a little Beatle clue, you know.
Paul isn't dead. We don't often sing or refer to death, I don't think so.
If the conclusion you reach is that I'm dead, then you're wrong, because I'm alive and living in Scotland.
Thank you, Mr. McCartney.